Hello again and welcome to part 2. Now we're actually going to play some chords on the guitar. So in this little video we're going to go through the major chords, and there's going to be 7 of them that we're going to learn today. And the major chords are just the happy sounding chords. So let's not waste any time, let's jump right into it and kick off with chord number 1. So for the major chords, we're just going to work through them all alphabetically. So let's start off with A major. So to play this chord, we're going to take our third finger and put it on the 2nd fret of the B string. Then we're going to take our second finger and put it on the 2nd fret of the G string, and our first finger and put it on the 2nd fret of the D string. So that's quite a tight squeeze on that fret, but we should be able to get all of our fingers in. There's a few things I want you to watch out for, and this is going to be the case for every chord that we play. We want to make sure that our thumb is always pointing towards the sky, and it's about halfway to 2/3 of the way up the neck. So we don't need our thumb all the way down here, and we don't need it all the way over the neck like that either. So just roughly around about the halfway point. We also want to make sure that our wrist is always down low, and we're always right on our fingertips with our fingers. Now for this chord, we're only going to play 5 strings. We're just going to put our pick on the A string and run it down towards the floor. Now if our wrist creeps up, then that means this little gap here in between our fingers is going to close, and then this fleshy part of our finger can end up touching the high E string, or it could potentially be this bit of our third finger in here can end up touching the high E string and blocking it. So we need to make sure that we have a nice gap right in here so that we can hear all of those strings ringing out. Next chord we're going to play is a B major. Now this is one of the bar chords. This is one of the really difficult ones. I'm going to do a separate video which goes into a lot more detail with bar chords and how we're going to play them and work our way up to it. So we're just going to quickly go through it in this video, and then like I say, follow the link that should be appearing at the top of the screen just now. That will show you how to get through these bar chords in a lot more detail. So really quickly, we would take our first finger and we would fret the 2nd fret on the A, D, G, B and high E strings. Then our second finger will play the 4th fret on the D string. Our third finger will play the 4th fret on the G string, and our pinky will play the 4th fret on the B string. Really quickly, make sure we go through all the usual checklists. So our wrist stays down, our thumb stays towards the sky, and it stays about halfway along the neck. And we want to be able to hear every string ringing out nice and clearly. The next chord will be C major. So for this, we're going to take our first finger, put it on the 1st fret of the B string, our second finger, and put it on the 2nd fret of the D string, and our third finger, and put it on the 3rd fret of the A string. And for this chord, we're only going to play the A, D, G, B and E strings. So we're only playing 5 strings for this chord. And again, make sure wrist stays down, thumb towards the sky, right on our fingertips. And we want to make sure that there's enough space underneath all of these fingers in here so that nothing is touching any of the adjacent strings. If we don't have a gap for our fingers there, if our wrist creeps up, or if we're not on our fingertips, we end up blocking other strings, which we want to avoid. Next chord will be D major. So for this one, we're going to put our first finger on the 2nd fret of the G string, our third finger on the 3rd fret of the B string, and our second finger on the 2nd fret of the high E string. Now for this chord, we're only going to play 4 strings. We're only going to play the D, G, B and E strings. And same as always, we want to make sure that no fingers are blocking any of the other strings. This finger here is normally the culprit in this chord, so we need to make sure that we're right on our fingertip, otherwise that finger can end up blocking the high E string. Next chord is E major. So for our E major chord, we are going to put our second finger on the second fret of the A string, our third finger on the second fret of the D string, and our first finger on the first fret of the G string. And for this chord, we're going to play all 6 strings. And all the normal rules apply. Make sure our wrist is down, make sure we're on our fingertips, make sure that no fingers are blocking any of the other strings. The next chord will be F major. Again, this is another one of the bar chords. This is another tricky one. We're going to go into more detail in this in my bar chord video, so make sure and watch that. But really quickly, let's just blast through it here as well. So for this chord, we need to bar across all 6 strings at the first fret with our first finger. Then take our third finger and put it on the third fret of the A string. Take our pinky and put it on the third fret of the D string, and our second finger and put it on the second fret of the G string. And we're going to play all 6 strings for this chord. And finally, we have a G chord. So for this one, we're going to put our second finger on the third fret of the low E string, our first finger on the second fret of the A string. Now, optionally, we can put our third finger on the third fret of the B string. I like to put that finger there. I think it makes for a better sounding chord, but you can leave the B string open if you prefer. And then we can put our pinky on the third fret of the high E string, and we play all 6 strings. Again, make sure all of our fingers are right on our fingertips and our wrist is down low, otherwise we can end up blocking some of those open strings with our first finger.